The movie begins with a guy named Ha Ho Mo, who's really good at martial arts. He ends up in a police station because he accidentally killed someone while fighting. Even though he didn't mean to do it, they still put him in jail. Fast forward 3 years, and there's this lady cop named Look Yuan Sum. She's investigating a crash where a truck driver got killed on a bridge. The people who work for her say there were drugs in the truck. She finds a gun near the truck too. But here's the strange part. The truck driver didn't die from the crash. He had a lot of bruises on his body, like someone beat him up with their hands. Meanwhile, Ha Ho's in prison, helping his friend who hurt his hand. Some other inmates show up and start causing trouble. Later, while watching TV, Ha Ho sees news about the truck crash and recognizes the driver's name. He freaks out and wants to call his wife. But the prison guards won't let him, which is pretty frustrating. So he decides to try another tactic and asks to meet Inspector Look. But they think that's weird and say no. Ha Ho isn't giving up though. He starts a fight with the inmates who bothered him before. He takes them down one by one, causing a big mess. The guards step in and Ha Ho gets taken away for questioning. It turns out he just really wants to talk to Inspector Look, so he keeps saying it over and over again. A few days later, Inspector Look visited Ha Ho in prison. Ha Ho started talking about the guy who died in the recent truck crash. He told Inspector Look that the truck driver used to be a pro boxer. Ha Ho said that whoever took down that boxer had to know what they were doing, and they did it without any weapons. So, the person who did it must be really good at martial arts. Ha Ho said he could help solve the case, but he wanted to be set free once it was done. Inspector Look said no to that. Now there's this guy named Tom King Yu in a museum. He's carving a huge skull statue. Tom used to be a top kung fu expert who had a super strong kick move. But now he's all about art, not fighting. While he's working, a guy named Fun Yusao shows up and challenges him to a fight. Tom tells him to leave and not mess with his skull statue. But Fun doesn't listen and steps on the skull. That makes Tom really mad, and he agrees to fight Fun. But Fun's too fast for him and beats him up bad. Sadly, Tom dies right there in the museum. Fun's goal is to kill all the kung fu masters in the country. He's done it twice now, first with the truck driver, then with Tom. He's planning to find and beat more kung fu masters. The next day, Inspector Look hears about Tom's murder. She knows it's connected to the truck driver's death. So she goes back to the prison and asks Ha Ho for help again. One morning, Ha Ho gets out of prison and meets up with Inspector Look. She asks him about the killer's whereabouts and who's the next target. Somewhere else, there's this guy Wang Shit who runs a grocery store. Fun comes to see him. Wang Shit is really good at kung fu and knows how to lock people up with his moves. They start fighting, and both are skilled fighters. But Fun manages to get the upper hand and tosses Wang out of his apartment. Wang's fall is bad, and he ends up dead when he hits a concrete structure near his place. After a while, Ha Ho and Inspector Look arrive at the crime scene. Sadly, they're too late, and Wang is already dead. But the killer left behind a metal carving with a picture of a swallow, like a signal that Fun did it. They check out Wang's beaten-up body, and Ha Ho spots a guy watching them from another building. It's Fun. Ha Ho tries to chase after him, but Fun gets away. Later on, Ha Ho goes back home to see his wife, Sin Yang. He's got a kung fu school with lots of students there. He finds a souvenir, a carving of a swallow, just like the one Fun left at the crime scene. Ha Ho's puzzled about how it ended up there. Sin tells him that a few months back, some guy she didn't know came looking for Ha Ho. Since Ha Ho wasn't there, the guy left the carving, saying it's for Ha Ho. Sin describes the man as around 30 years old and walking with a limp. Ha Ho's curious and wants to figure out what it means. Sin suggests they go to someone who knows about the history of kung fu in the country. One afternoon, Ha Ho and Sin go to see To Fuk Ming, who knows a lot about martial arts symbols. Ming tells them that the carving of the bird is called the Eve's Swallow. Back in the day, kung fu masters used to compete in Beijing. The ones who lost would get the Eve's Swallow symbol. Ming asks Ha Ho why he's interested in the carving. Ha Ho explains that a serial killer leaves the same symbol, the Eve's Swallow, after each murder. This killer has a leg injury. Unfortunately, Ming doesn't have more info about the serial killer. As Ha-Ho and Sin are about to leave, a friend of Ming's who overheard their conversation calls them back. He says he might know the serial killer they're talking about. 6 years ago, a guy with a strange name, Fung Yusao, challenged him. Fung lives with his wife on Sui Kwai Lane. When Ha-Ho hears this, he contacts Inspector Look and tells her to meet them at Sui Kwai Lane. They get to Fung's place, but when Inspector Look and her team search, they find out that Fung and his wife left a while ago. The owner of the house says Fung's wife had cancer, but Fung was too busy with Kung Fu to take care of her. They left for Hong Kong for work. While Inspector Look is talking to the house owner, one of her team members informs her that Fung is currently in Hong Kong. They also find out that Fung was in a mental hospital 6 years ago. Right now, Fung is on a film set, but he gets kicked out for causing trouble. He gets angry and grabs a sword, stabbing one of the crew members. He's looking for a guy named Hung Yip. Hung is a swordsman who's now an actor. Fung challenges Hung in front of everyone on the set to prove who's better. Hung agrees and they start fighting. At first, Hung hurts Fung with his sword, but Fung manages to turn things around and kills Hung with a small knife. After a while, one of Inspector Look's team members gets a call from a mysterious person who wants to talk to Ha-Ho. It turns out to be Fung. He's challenging Ha-Ho to a fight. The call is tracked, and the police figure out where Fung is. Inspector Look sends her team to arrest him, but Fung manages to escape before they get there. Inspector Look holds a meeting with her team to discuss what to do next. They find out that Fung's real name is Young Hoi-sam, and he's been going in and out of Hong Kong. Word is that his grandma had a house in Tai-O Village, so they think he might be hiding there. Inspector Look heads to Tai-O Village to keep an eye on things. They close off an area and set up cameras. If Fung shows up at his grandma's house, the police will catch him. The plan seems to work. Cameras catch Fung coming to his grandma's house by boat. The police get ready, but Fung figures out they're onto him. He turns the boat around and seems to have disappeared. Inspector Look gets worried. She tells her team to find Fung, no matter what. Suddenly, a call comes in. Police HQ says Inspector Look needs to arrest Ha-Ho. The CCTV footage shows Fung visiting Ha-Ho in prison. The police chief thinks Ha-Ho and Fung are buddies, and they're behind all this trouble. Inspector Look tells her team to nab Ha-Ho at the police station. But Ha-Ho gets the upper hand, grabs a gun, and runs off to see his wife, Sin. At the same time, Fung reaches Ha-Ho's place and meets Sin. Sin tries to talk some sense into him, telling him to stop the killing. But Fung isn't one to listen. He's a dangerous guy who's willing to hurt innocent people, and that's exactly what he does. Not too long after, Ha-Ho got back home and found Sin hurt and lying on the floor. Meanwhile, Fung was trying to escape from the police. Fung managed to dodge the police a few times and get to his boat by the river. He sped away, but the police kept chasing him and shooting from behind. Fung felt trapped, so he suddenly turned his boat around. He tried to crash into the police boat. Luckily, the cops on the boat jumped off just in time to save themselves. Sin got taken to the hospital by ambulance. Ha-Ho called Inspector Look from a distance and explained why Fung had visited him in prison a few months ago. Fung wanted to fight Ha-Ho and even threatened to hurt Sin if Ha-Ho didn't agree. So, Ha-Ho asked Inspector Look to keep Sin safe while he faced Fung's challenge. A few weeks later, Fung shows up at a port, ready to challenge a Kung Fu master who's an expert at internal power techniques. This Kung Fu pro works as a truck driver. When Fung gets to the truck, Ha-Ho gets out and challenges him. The truck driver calls Inspector Look for help. Right in the middle of the road, Ha-Ho and Fung start fighting. At first, Ha-Ho struggles against Fung's attacks, but he kicks Fung and nearly gets him hit by a truck. Ha-Ho saves him at the last moment. They keep fighting, and this time, Ha-Ho hits Fung over and over. Fung ends up begging for mercy, but that's just a trick. He suddenly tries to attack Ha-Ho again. Sadly, they both get hit by a speeding truck. Ha-Ho flies to the side of the road. He's kind of out of it, but he sees Fung close by. Fung realizes Ha-Ho is his toughest opponent. Fung takes out a small knife to finish Ha-Ho off. But right then, Inspector Look shows up, aiming a gun at Foon. She tells Foon to surrender. Instead, Foon tries to attack Inspector Look. She shoots a few times and finally manages to take down the serial killer who's been causing all the trouble. After 3 months, Ha-Ho is still in jail, but he's gained a lot of respect from the other prisoners. Then, Inspector Look comes to see him and gives him some good news. He's getting released. Finally, the movie wraps up with Ha-Ho taking pictures with Sin and their little baby boy. They're all smiles. He also takes photos with all his students from his kung fu school, and that's how the film ends. So the moral of the story is in the world of martial arts and crime solving. It's not about how tough you are, but about teamwork and trusting those around you. Even the most unexpected alliances can lead to justice prevailing and smiles all around.